And that's when I kind of decided to shift gears and what better to have someone that actually enjoys the source material compared to just trying to pick up an IP. I didn't want to be like the guy that did that live action Avatar: The Last Airbender, being like, "Hey, my kids love it. I'm just
Just the
gonna
shade M.
just gonna
Night
do it."
Shyamalan right there.
Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to the Script Heroes podcast.
Where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasanowski, and I'm the writer of Janitor Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robots Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire.
We're going to be talking about our polls for the week, including Titans Beast World number 2, Titans Beast World Tour Gotham, World's Finest Teen Titans number 6, Invasive number 1, and Daredevil Gang War number 1.
And our back issue review this week is Savage Dragon Baptism of Fire from Image Comics. That's going to collect the original Dragon miniseries as well as some little Image extras.
We're also going to be joined by a special guest today.
That is right in our Creator Corner. We have an awesome interview with Nicholas Mueller.
The madman who put a chainsaw in the hands of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, we talk Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, Kickstarters, and a whole lot more. Don't miss out on this one.
And if you're interested in following the pod on socials, we are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at Script Heroes Pod. So you can find us there to join the conversation, or you can find my personal socials at JJAZ1111.
And I am on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
Now, for the news. So DC Comics has announced a new title that will be launching in March of 2024. DC has announced their Ape Real Special to launch ahead of April Fool's Day. So, here's all the information on that new title. Get ready to go bananas as we honor DC's storied history with mankind's closest relatives in this epic adventure, DC's April Special, just ahead of April Fool's Day 2024. Gorilla Grodd's recent incarceration in the pages of DC's The Flash comic series has left a void that Mansoor Mala is more than happy to fill. Ape-sembling a group of DCU's most similar simians, Mala forms the Legion of Do-Oo-Ah-Ah with an eye toward world domain ape-shin, but the world won't be conquered that easily. Enter the all-ape jungle E-E-G. Can this team of heroic anthropoids be the salve ape shin we all need? Or a Mala's team of maniacal monkeys bring forth the ape apocalypse? So this is coming out in March with stories by John Layman, Joshua Hale Falkove, and Gene Yang, with art by Carl Mostert, Phil Hester, and Bernard Chang, with the main cover being done by Dan Mora.
And I believe a variant cover is being done by
That is
Hayden
true.
Sherman.
A banana scent variant cover.
Yeah.
That is accurate.
Yes,
Bernard
yes.
Chang doing
I saw that on their Instagram, and I was like, oh my god, amazing. I was so not ready for that synopsis.
So many ape puns. It was kind of hard to get through, not gonna lie.
Someone had way too much fun making that copy. So I suppose this is kind of an April Fool's style thing. Yes, yeah. Well, what a I have loved the little like holiday and kind of just specials that they've been
anthology
putting out.
one. There was one for Halloween, I think, like the DC.
There was one for Halloween. There was the one over the summer. There's definitely another that I'm just completely blanking on. Yeah, I just think it's a lot of fun to have these like very like low stakes pick up the book titles to just grab off the shelf for a little bit of silly disconnected fun.
Yep, there's gonna be 48 pages and 3 stories, it looks like, so a little bit longer than I think some of the other specials that kind of had their stories be, and less stories in them, because I think a lot of those were kind of like a bunch of 6 to 8 pages or 10 pages or whatever, whereas this is, I don't know, you do the math of 48 divided by 3, not that they're going to be even necessarily, but a little bit longer stories, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's going to have more of a connected plot across it as well, which
probably really something more like, if I had to guess, like with the Beast World offshoot, like the World Tour Metropolis, probably something more like that, if I had to guess.
I guess that's very silly. Perfect for April Fools.
Yep. Let's move on to our next news story, I guess. So Disney and the Ditko estate have finally settled over the rights to Marvel superheroes Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. So if you were not aware of what has been going on, Katie, Ditko's brother Patrick Ditko had filed a notice back in 2021, basically stating that the heir of Steve Ditko still had the rights to Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. There's been kind of a lengthy legal battle ending on December 6th, a week ago, about where they have settled out of court for terms that are obviously not available to the public, but I would be willing to bet a boatload of money. And Marvel now are the sole owners of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange in, perpetuity. So, fun times.
That I don't I will never pretend to understand copyright law
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Because I mean, Disney is the reason that copyright law has been getting so muddy lately. I think for the most part, a lot of their pushes to uh, keep their properties out of expired copyright. Because with like personal people, it's like their lifespan plus 50 or something. Right?
Yes. I I think it's some I think there's also a number that's just like after creation, if I'm not mistaken. That's like it was,
Mm.
I want to say 60 and then went something to like 80. But that wasn't recent. Like Disney hasn't made any pushes recently. Like they let Steamboat Willie go into the public domain. Like, and they
Mm.
let Winnie the Pooh go into public domain. Their pushes were more like in the 90s, and that's why everything ended up getting
Yeah.
extended to like now instead of it all happening in the 90s. I think
Mm.
Disney's mostly given up and assume that their trademarks are strong enough that nobody can really infringe on them because there's no statute of limitations on trademarks.
Exactly.
So it's like, you can't have Winnie the Pooh in a, red shirt, or you can't title things, that
Mm.
because they own the trademark, and that's, you can't really
Right.
infringe on that, but people can use the characters. Actually, we'll talk a little bit about using some of those characters later in our creator corner with a very special guest. But yeah, I think that it's interesting, but this is, a little bit different. This is about, like work for hire agreements. Um,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where like,
Which obviously we're notoriously predatory with
yeah.
comics.
And I think the
Um,
thing is, because like with the legality around, like you have to know what you're agreeing to in modern comics, it doesn't come up as
mm,
much because at this point there is enough of a history where like clearly now you know what you're agreeing to. When it comes to the original
yeah,
creators, Ditko, Kirby had a similar suit. It's like they didn't really quite understand the full scope of things back then. But I think most of the states are willing to just be paid off with big sums at this point.
right.
Not specifically.
Which I can only assume is what happened with
Yeah, I
Ditko's.
would assume so. With it being settled, you assume it's a cash settlement. I think something
Yes,
similar happened
yeah,
with like the Schuster family, and that's why you have like all the little Schuster notes on, Superman
right.
books. Uh, uh, Bob Kane had sorry, Bill Finger had a similar but different thing where they just wanted credit, not, but
Yeah,
that ties into Bob Kane's agreement, which was a whole other thing. It's a very weird area to play.
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
messy corner of the comics
Yes, but it
industry.
has been, I guess, simplified a little bit here with the once again, Disney paying off a creator's family to stake their claim in, one of the most valuable character properties in the world.
Well, not exactly tied to Spider-Man. We have a Marvel poll this week. Do we want to go
Let's do
chat
it.
about it? We are in the pull list rec. We've got some great books on the docket today. I believe we're going to be starting with Invasive, jumping
Yep.
to Daredevil Gang War, then
First
Titans
Marvel
Beast
book.
World. Yeah. Titans Beast World Tour, Gotham, and then the conclusion of World's Finest, Teen Titans, with number 6.
Yeah,
But
that
that's
sounds
not all
good.
that we read this week. Jay, what else did you pull?
Oh man. Okay. Action Comics 1060, Crusader number 4 from Mad Cave, Dark Spaces Dungeon number 2 from IDW, Green
Amy
Lantern number
Sherman.
6. Yeah. Space Usagi Death and Honor number 1, Superman Lost number 9. And then I picked up issues 1 and 2 of a series called Siphon.
Nice. I also did a little 1 and 2 catch up for one of my series. That's going to be Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. What a title. We've also got Batman Robin Lives, the alternate ending to Death in the Family with alive Jason Todd if everyone didn't vote to kill a child. I also grabbed Spider-Gwen Smash number 1 for a little personal book club with my girlies. Sorry, Jay. Not invited. And Batman City of Madness number 2, as well as Nightwing The Leap. Hardcover came out. Got to keep my shelf looking fresh. But yeah, I think we're going to start off with...
Invasive.
Yeah, start off with Invasive. Let's go.
Starting with Invasive number 1. Beyond excess, beyond ethics, beyond science. Enter a terrifying new experiment in pain. Dr. Kerry Reynolds was a veteran trauma surgeon with a godlike mastery of muscle and bone. But outside the operating room, her rigidly ordered life spiraled into chaos when her daughter, Heather, a recovering plastic surgery addict, suddenly disappeared, only to mysteriously re-emerge in a catatonic state, her vocal cords removed. The latest in a series of victims scarred by a battery of brazenly cruel medical procedures that have baffled police and left an alarming number of once ordinary citizens maimed, mutilated, or dead on arrival. The writer of the series is one of my personal favorite writers, Cullen Bunn, of Green Lantern Lost Army, The Sixth Gun, Basilisk, Ghost Lore, and a lot more. Jesus Gervais is the artist. He worked on The Empty Man. The colorist is Dan Jackson, and letters are Taylor Esposito. So, Katie, what'd you think of Invasive?
Look, I am someone who is like very squeaked out by horror, like scary horror and body horror and gore.
This was body horror. Like,
here's the thing: it was body horror, but it wasn't. And I don't mean this in a way to discredit the art. It wasn't grotesque. Like, it was freaky. There are a lot of great images.
It was uncomfortable, is the word that I put in my notes.
That works for it too. There are a lot of really freaky images, but it's not like nightmare fuel, which I so appreciate as someone who really likes the story going on here, but might be put off by more kind of like shocking gore. I thought that was super.
It's not gore. It's more of like, you see a lot more of like the aftermarks of like what people are left with, and like than you do,
or
like,
not.
It's not super bloody, or exactly. It's not super bloody. It's not super like you see organs constantly or anything like that. But you do see like there's a little bit of that. But like mainly it's like, okay, here's this person who's like missing a jaw or missing like various parts of themselves. So it's uncomfortable is the word that I used. I think the art is really strong for that. I think it set the tone immediately. Like that first page where we see of the plastic surgery addict who's like in a very rough state. It's like one of those things where you look at it and you're like, oh man, that's uncomfy to look at. But
and then even the following page, there's basically an Plastic Surgery Addicts Anonymous meeting, and we see all these, which was such a good introduction to the aesthetic of the book, and I think it was really, really effective, and I really enjoyed that.
That's such a good example.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say that's such a great example of how good the dialogue is in this book. Like the dialogue in that scene, so strong. Like it's all unsettling, and because you actually see the mental state of these people. I've always been a huge fan of the way Cullen Bunn's able to get character across in dialogue. Everybody really does feel like different people, and that's really, really, great.
For sure. And I think part of the effectiveness of the characters is the mystery that is portrayed here, because we're following a detective who has been ostensibly removed from this case, as well as the mother of one of the victims, who also has this kind of unique take on it, being a surgeon herself. And so, what a cool team up for hunting down essentially a plastic surgery serial killer.
Yeah, really,
just
cool
such
stuff.
A cool concept, along with
I don't know if I have personally really anything to say bad about this book. It's maybe a bit slow paced for some people. It's not an action filled book. It's never going to be an action filled book, I would assume. So
But I
maybe
wouldn't
that's like
expect
your
that
one little
from
thing.
most
But yeah,
horror.
no. But so like that's what I think you could put out there. But I don't have anything really negatively to say about this book.
That's super fair. It's certainly outside my normal comfort zone, but that is not a detraction from the book itself at all. It was really good, and it's something that, even though it is outside that comfort zone for me, I still felt very invested in, and it was very effective. You want to hop into your rating?
Yeah, I gave it a 9.25. I was really between the 9 and 9.5. So I gave it a 9.25. And this is a strong poll list rec from me. This was a really great first issue.
Yeah, I gave this an 8. Again, it's not my normal taste, so an 8 is pretty much the ceiling for a story that's not like a "this is for me" book. But yeah, also a poll list rec from me.
Official Script Heroes poll list rec for Invasive #1. Check it out.
Amazing. Yeah, let's hop over to Daredevil.
The heat is on in Hell's Kitchen. Electro Nachos, former assassin turned Daredevil, has been recruited by the Amazing Spider-Man to stop New York City from tearing itself apart, as every mobster and supervillain in town goes to war. And Electro is the only thing standing in the way of Hell's Kitchen's annihilation at the hands of a dangerous new gang, the Heat, whose violent schemes from the pages of Daredevil unfold. The writer is Erica Schultz, who's done Hallows Eve and X-23. The penciler is Sergio Fernandez Davila, Black Knight, and Conan the Slayer, with Cullen Bunn, actually, funnily enough. The inker is Sean Parsons of Batman TMNT Adventures and Batman Beyond. The colorist is Cecil Dela Cruz, and the letters are Clayton Cowles. Katie, how'd you feel about Daredevil Gang War?
All right. This is...
Oh, that's never a good start.
No, it is a good start. I was couching it because we read Daredevil #1 together. This was a while ago,
of the latest run.
Of the latest run. And I did not like that at all. I am so glad to have a reintroduction to current Daredevil. Like, I was super underwhelmed by that first one. I am hype about this one. I thought this was so fun. Yeah, I think that the action is amazing. Elektra's a little bit of a dramatic narrator, right? But you know,
Elektra's a little bit of a dramatic character, but it's fun.
And like, I love that for her.
I like Elektra a lot. I'm a big fan of Elektra as a character. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy Elektra.
And like, this is right up my alley. I love like a gang war style plot. Batman No Man's Land was one of the like first comics that I ever read, and just like, seeing the map in the front where they break down the different gang territories, I'm just like, this is it. This is home right here.
Okay, I'm glad to see you having that enjoyment for it. I think it's a really strong opening. I really like the like coming in with these like nice captions and the intro to it. I think that the villain that they introduced, we don't ever get a name for, I don't think yet, is very interesting. And I don't have a ton to say about this because it wasn't like overly deep. It was just a lot of really cool action, fun interactions. I think Elektra came off really well. I think that she was drawn fantastically in the motion and action sequences, and I really enjoyed this, and I'm hoping that we'll continue with this 4-issue miniseries, I believe.
Yeah, I think the real standout from this for me was the art. There are just some amazing double pages, and just some awesome movement on the page. The only downside for me on the art side is that it's really not my favorite Spider-Man art, because Pete does show up to swing around a bit. But you know, it's not a Spider-Man book, so that's not a big deal. I hesitated to call it a pull list rec. I know that we're not quite 2 ratings yet, but if we want to segue, yeah.
I was on the borderline. I was on the borderline. I was going to ask you, do you think this is a book that's easily accessible to people who don't know what's going on with the event? Because we did not.
I was going to say, I do not know what's going on with the event. Frankly, this has inspired me. I'm probably going to grab the other Gang War ones because I'm just like, this is fun. This is good.
I feel like there's a boatload of them, though.
There are. Yeah, there's like a little checklist in the bag. I'm like, oh, no, maybe I won't get all of these, but I'll probably grab the Spider-Man ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would call this a pull list rec because, as someone with basically zero context for the current event, also for a lot of the characters in the book, like I've never read an Elektra Daredevil story. I don't know that I've read any Elektra at all. I still felt super kind
Big
of.
disappointment.
Look, I am happy to read some. She's super cool. What a great first impression.
Listen. If you want to read "Woman Without Fear" by Zdarsky, I will fully advocate that we do that at some point.
Perfect. Yes, that's going onto the list. But yeah, I think I landed on putting this as a pull list rec. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah, there we go. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm similar to you on that. Yeah,
I enjoyed it a lot, and I do think it is accessible.
I gave it a 7 out of 10. It's one of those books where, and I think I do this a lot, where I'm like, it's a lot of fun, but when it doesn't just go beyond like fun, I typically give it that 7 out of 10, where I'm like, this is an enjoyable comic book. That's my like number for like just a very enjoyable comic book. I was very borderline on whether or not to give it a pull list rec. I think I will. I agree with you. I don't think you need too much knowledge on what's going on to enjoy this. Mm-hmm. I obviously have a little bit more background on the Daredevil related characters, but not on the gang war event. Had no idea what was going on there. So yeah, it's enjoyable. I think you should give it a read, and that will make it another official Script Heroes pull list rec.
Let's move on to Beast World. All right, Titans Beast World number 2. The status quo shattering Titans crossover continues. With beasts rampaging through the streets and a world conqueror in the sky, the Titans must do all they can to save humanity. But as heroes and villains alike are infected, will the team stay clear of the spores or become a part of the threat? As the world rages, can Raven discover a way to save Beast Boy? This is coming to us from writer Tom Taylor, Nightwing, Wolverine, Titans. Ivan Reis is the penciler here. Green Lantern, Justice League Detective Comics with inks from Danny Miki. Brad Anderson is the colorist, and Wes Abbott is the letterer. Jet, how'd you feel about Numero Deux?
Really enjoyed it. Not quite as much as number 1, but really enjoyed it. The focus on Dick and Batman together in an event, good stuff. Really do enjoy that. Even if when we get to World Tour, they kind of undo everything that happens in this issue in the first couple of pages of that issue. But it's really done well here. There's some great dialogue and interaction between Dick and Batman about like what's going on, about when Batman's transforming and he's kind of worried about what's going to happen. Not to go too spoiler heavy into what happens later. There's some great. I really like Wonder Girl and Starfire going to Kahndaq to take on Black Adam. That's some cool stuff. I am still left feeling like Cyborg and Starfire, I would like them to have more lines in Titans content, because I feel like the two of them have really been getting the shaft from the Titans line into the event, because they've done important things, but I feel like they never really
Cyborg
get to
is even in this issue.
He is. He's at the very beginning.
Oh,
he's on page 1.
He did it.
But
he made it.
Doesn't do anything after that. Yeah. So, and I've mentioned how much I love Ivan Reis drawing Cyborg, so I'm like, more Cyborg in this event would be really nice, but the focus on, because again, beyond this being a Titans book, this does have to be the main book of the event as well. So having the focus on Dick and Batman here is not a downside at all. It's a really strong point for the comic, I think. And
I'm also just a big fan. Yeah, I'm just a big fan of the way that Taylor writes the Batman Dick relationship, because it's much brighter, I guess, much more wholesome than I think it's sometimes portrayed, which, some people may have problems with. I understand that, but I think that it reminds you why Dick and Bruce are like the dynamic duo, when they have this good relationship and they trust each other and they work so seamlessly together.
I enjoy it a lot. I am starting to learn the more as I read of Tom Taylor's, using the two of them, that he needs to find an excuse every time they interact for Batman to call Dick his son.
To call himself dad,
and I'm like, I don't know if we need that every single time they interact. Like, you've done it, and I like that you put it in there, but it doesn't need to be in every single interaction.
No, I hear that.
A little heavy-handed, but very small.
Especially in this, it was very heavy-handed.
Yeah, well, that's why I was like, I kind of realized it happens every time, and then this one felt like particularly convoluted and forced, and I was like, you can pull back on that. We get it. It's there. They don't have to specifically say it.
Exactly. But like I loved and I don't think this counts as spoilers. It's one, it's on covers, and two, it's in the first
Yeah,
few pages. Batman does get beasted. And
yeah,
there's a really good interaction between the two of them while he's transforming. It's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
so
absolutely.
raw and
It's amazing.
cool.
So
And then
well
the
done.
art of him as the transformed Batman, so good.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah, really, really
gosh.
strong.
We also get to see Babs return to the seat as Oracle, which I'm always a fan of. Um,
Well, she kind of been there in the Titans run, kind of with them, like,
yeah, a
you
bit,
know.
but we haven't seen her as much.
No, no,
But yeah, I don't have a ton
which
of
is weird.
gripes
She's
with
been a
this.
great Titans
Really,
fan.
just
Yeah, me neither.
kind of to reiterate yours is that I want more of the Titans in this Titans
Yes,
book.
yes. Yeah, it's just slight like focus things and like how you
Mhm.
actually treat all the characters, which is always tough in an event. But overall, I think they've been doing a good job. Do you want to segue into ratings with that?
Let's jump into ratings. I gave this one a 7 out of 10. I really
Ooh,
enjoyed it.
huge drop off from the first issue.
I I really enjoyed it, but I do think that it is a little too close on like I loved the Dick and Bruce part. Like that was my favorite part. It's my favorite kind of content. But for an event book, like we don't see anything really happening with Gar or Raven and Cyborg. We get a little bit of
Yeah,
Amanda Waller, which I actually liked here. I liked what she was doing,
I thought it was done
but
well
I
here.
feel
Yeah,
like we didn't have enough of the Beast Worlds plot in this Beast Worlds #2.
that's fair. I thought it was a really strong issue. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was
Ooh.
really well done emotionally and everything. Step down from issue 1 for sure, but still really strong. And I would call this, well, now I'm trying to think if it's a good jumping on point. I'm going to call it a pull list rec. We're going to go for it. We're going to say I call this a pull list rec.
You know, I didn't call it a pull list rec, which is shocking because I liked
Okay.
it so much.
Well, I mean, I guess that says it all. So let's
Yeah,
move on to Beast World Tour. Gotham.
let's do it. Titans Beast World Tour, Gotham. Beast World spreads to Gotham City as the bestial infection spreads all over Earth. The shape-shifting spores finally start to take root in Gotham City. Follow the feral tales of your favorite heroes and villains as they lose themselves to their more bestially nature. Writers on here, we have 5 stories. So we've got Chip Zdarsky, Grace Ellis, Gretchen Felker Martin, Sam Maggs, and Kyle Starks as our writing team. And the artists are Miguel Mendoza, Daniel Hilliard, Ivan Sharvin, PJ Holden, and Kelly Jones. And the group editor for this book specifically was Ben Abernathy. I would love for us to jump right into the first story of it, just for a quick
Yeah.
moment, since we talked about
It's
the
the meaty
Bruce and Dick
story, I think, of
situation.
this.
Oh yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
the headliner of sorts.
The-
It's called The Good Boy.
Well, firstly,
which
I'll
we
say,
love.
like, having Chip Zdarsky on, it's nice. You know, Batman
Mhm.
writer at this point, and obviously a very talented writer. But it does immediately just kind of undo everything that was done in the Beast World story from this week, which is just really rough. The end line is super freaking cringy. But it's
I
overall well
liked
done as a
it.
story, I feel like. No, that was garbage. I'm sorry. I
I
love Chip
liked it.
Zdarsky. There is no reason that that Dick should be calling Batman a good boy at the end of the
There is
story.
when
Just-
he's in puppy form.
he's not in puppy form. He's in like
He's a
werewolf
good
form.
boy. I thought it was fun.
Um,
Yeah, I think it's a little dumb that it immediately undoes what we just spent half of the Beast World #2 issue doing.
Yeah.
And that might have also factored into my rating of Beast World #2, not gonna lie. But yeah, I thought that the writing was snappy. I loved the Killer Croc bit in it. I thought that was super funny.
Oh yeah, really, really strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually love to have you just kind of pick one to jump into.
Yeah, I think I'll have to pick Scavengers because I'm a Red Hood fan, so I have to talk about the Red Hood story.
Mm-hmm.
There was really cool art in it, but
Yes.
it was a little bit of a nothing burger of a story. I feel like it's always like we head back to Jason. It's like I died. Got to remind you of that. Have to have like almost a full page splash of, or literally a full page splash of us seeing you die as Robin again in this anthology story. Great. It felt like a lot of the captions were like kind of trying to like do a deep dive into Jason's character, but they didn't really have the opportunity to really do that. Nothing really happens in the story. It's a lot of just like cool Jason is a werewolf action, which is really cool from an art standpoint, and it's fun to watch or fun to look at. But Yeah, I would have liked that to go a little bit, especially because I think that gets a pretty high page count compared to a lot of the
Oh
stories.
yeah.
I would have liked that to go a little bit deeper into
My
everything.
commentary was literally that, and this is no shade to the writer, but with how strong the art was and how cool it looked, I feel like it's one of those things where, like, if this was wordless, I would kind of love it. Like, he's in this beast form, he can't really talk. He talks about how he's not sure if he'll have these thoughts when he turns human again. Uh, but, like, it was so visually good, and then I feel like the captions pulled me out of it, actually.
Which is super fair. I'm gonna throw it to you. Is there a story you want to talk about before we hit our ratings?
I was a fan of, and I feel like you're not going to be, of the Cassandra and Huntress one.
That was Claw and Order, right?
That was Claw and
I
Order.
believe.
Cass
I
essentially
enjoyed it a little
has
bit.
to
I feel like it's
wrangle
wrapped up, and I don't know
Bestial
what's happening in
Huntress.
the wrap up. Like I didn't really know what happened in the conclusion. I found
Yeah,
that
I think that if she led her into, like, a cage or something, it would have made a little more sense. But as it was, she basically just distracts her with a laser pointer
Yeah.
because she's a big panther, which I thought was funny. And I really, really liked the art on that one. I really liked the. I don't know that I've read anything from that artist, but I really liked what I saw. But overall,
I thought that was good, yeah.
what would you give this book?
Overall, I am going to give this a 6.5 out of 10. A little bit better than the Metropolis World Tour, in my opinion, but nothing spectacular in this book. Just a lot of like fun stories that I don't think really did anything crazy. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
I'm actually going to
And not a
completely
pull
twin
list
with
for me.
you. No, not for me either. But yeah, I'll completely twin with you on the rating and the reasons. But let's jump into World's Finest Teen Titans.
Let's do it.
World's Finest Teen Titans number 6. The fight with the Terror Titans comes to a head, with the team's trust in each other and themselves renewed after Robin's reveal. The Teen Titans hatch a plan to draw out their Dark Mirror foes. But will they get a member of the Justice League killed in the process? This is coming to us from writer Mark Waid. I mean, come on, it's Mark Waid. Daredevil, JLA, everyone, World's Finest, Batman, Superman, all that amazing stuff. We have 2 artists this week for the book. It's going to be Emanuela Lupacchino, she did Bombshells, X Factor, Supergirl, as well as Mike Norton coming in. He's done Teen Titans Go, Young Justice, Shazam. Yeah, this is the conclusion. Jay, how you feeling?
I really like this as a conclusion. It's a really strong opening that kind of gets right into it. Oliver Queen shows up. Great. Cool stuff. Important for the emotional arc of Roy and of the book as a whole. The fight sequence is really cool. It's long. The artist has shifted on it, which makes me think they redid it or something, which is interesting. But
we have a conspiracy
the final
theory.
product looks really cool. Yeah, we have a conspiracy theory on that. But the it's a really cool fight sequence that I think works really well about like showing their teamwork and this plan coming into action. I think they did well. As per usual, I can do without the social media thing that they're trying to thread into this like past Teen Titans book. It doesn't fit really the time, and it doesn't really fit the characters, I think, well. It feels a little kind of tacked on as like trying to be with the youth.
It also felt like a kind of false full circle to me, like a little bit of a cheaper one.
Yeah, but there's a really strong emotional conclusion here too. Like when we get to the end, like a lot of the characters get really good emotional conclusions to the arc. Mark Waid knows how to actually tell a full story in his arc, and this is a full story that really has those emotional conclusions, as well as like real conclusions to the, more like physical threat as well.
Absolutely. I will say the emotional conclusions were so good. I was so mad though that we didn't get a better one for Roy. Like his relationship with Ollie has been such a point of like character flaw for him, and to have his resolution
I wouldn't get
literally
too into the
a line of dialogue
resolution.
and then a reaction panel, I thought just wasn't enough for how much.
I don't inherently I don't inherently disagree with you. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I thought that was really a bummer. And I think Kid Flash could have used a little bit more as well. But other than that, amazing work with all of them. I really, really loved the fight scene, especially Robin. Robin runs off to confront one of them on his own and like knocks the lights out for just a great bit of very Batman style combat in there. I thought it was a super strong ending, only missing the landing with Roy, which is a bit of a bummer because he had one of the, I think, best arcs within the book.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think that's a very fair analysis of it. But it's a really strong issue, start to finish. I think with some really great action and emotional stakes. Do you want to get into
Absolutely.
ratings from there?
Let's
Unless
get
you have
into
some.
ratings.
Well, you kind of gave your
No,
so
no,
let's get
no,
into
no,
ratings.
no.
I gave this a 9 out of 10, and I will. Well, maybe you don't want to pull up the last issue. I'm not going to say to pull this if you haven't pulled the rest of the series, so maybe I won't give it a pull this rec. But I give this a 9 out of 10. Maybe my favorite issue of World's Finest Teen Titans. It was really, really strong.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I gave this an 8.5 out of 10. I was a little harsher just because I was really disappointed that we didn't get more for Roy. But yeah, really, really a great issue. Mark Waid just cannot miss. It's fantastic to see. I also would not call this a pull list rec. There is going to be a trade coming out of it, so certainly grab that and read
Pull the
entire
trade.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Without further ado,
Yeah.
do you want to get into the back issue review?
Let's do it.
Savage Dragon is the most cutting-edge mainstream superhero comic ever created. In this very first story arc, we meet Officer Dragon, a brand new cop in a Chicago overrun with super freaks and crime lords. Creator Eric Larson takes big risks with storytelling, characterization, and plot, infusing this series with violence, sex, and humor in a way previously unseen in the genre. He takes liberties no other creator can, and will surprise you at every turn. This book retools and reworks the original trade paperback with more unpublished sketches and art. It's the miniseries that started it all. I have a feeling Eric Larson wrote that blurb, by the way. So this was obviously written and illustrated by Eric Larson, who you might know from his work on Savage Dragon. Also Spider-Man, but Savage Dragon. The colorists are Steve Oliff and Gregory Wright, with letters by Chris Eliopoulos. Yeah, this book's a lot. It's 90s for sure. Even in its, I think I referred to it last week as like probably the most fondly remembered 90s, image series, or at least OG 90s image series. It's still very 90s, as you would expect, because it came out in the 90s. But what'd you think of this, Katie? Let's get right into it.
I mean, it's a lot. And that's and everything is just big.
How many times will we say it's a lot today?
And that's kind of
everything
like
is
thing with 90s books, is that they're all big. Everything is kind of cranked up, just to the nth degree.
Yes.
I liked it more than I thought I would, considering my general distaste for 90s books. It is not as, I guess, it's not as kind of grimy as a lot of other ones are, where there's like just kind of, it feels, I'm sorry, I'm very lost in my own wording here, because I don't want to be mean to 90s books, because there's definitely people who love them, and I understand why, but a lot of them are like kind of disposable, I think. Like, it's a lot of kind of just big action going on, and this had some deeper through lines to it that I wasn't expecting, and I was really impressed by that.
It kind of jumps back and forth, which is interesting. Like, that was kind of my main thing, because I'll say slightly disappointed, because I do enjoy certain 90s series. Like, I still like this, but with this being hailed, I think, by a lot of people as like the 90s, image book to grab, and this is the very beginning, so like, I'm sure it's evolved. I have read some later issues of Savage Dragon, not like in order or anything, but I do think it evolves. So, but I think I was expecting a little bit more out the gate. There's a lot, like you mentioned, there are these like emotional through lines and moments, but it feels like those happen and then the action happens, and then those happen and then the action happens. It's really a nice like constant thread, which is one of the things that disappointed me. But every scene between Frank, who's the police officer, and Dragon is really strong. There's moral questions. There's really interesting dialogue and kind of like this not super great relationship between the two of them. Like they're kind of at odds while also working together. That's really well done. Honestly, for I'm not going to say Fortnite, because I'm not going to sit here and like keep throwing it out like Fortnite. I'm going to talk about this as a comic book, because I think that's the fair way to do it. It has some really good dialogue at points, I feel like. I like a lot of the news things, like when things come over the news that kind of deliver information about this world. I thought the world building was really strong, and like, oh, we have all these metas and these freaks and stuff. I think the idea of starting with like the dragon having amnesia and he doesn't even know what gives him his powers or why he looks like this or what he is, really cool. Really enjoyed that. Super Patriot's an awesome antagonist. Really like Super Patriot. Probably like one of the coolest characters created in this book. But
to
there's
swing
definitely
back to something you were saying there, real quick, with the amnesia thing. I am normally not a fan of amnesia plots. I think that they really they block character more than they accentuate it. But I do think that it was used well here because of the immediate placement of Dragon into like kind of character rife situations. Like, it's not him trying to figure out who he was, and he's never like really lamenting who he was. He is very much here and now, and he has a bold personality here and now.
Yeah. No, he's very much like, this is who I am, whatever I was, you know, is what I was. And then we get that little thread of like somebody recognizing him from like his previous. It's like, oh, okay, maybe now we are going to get something. That's the other thing, like, there's a lot unresolved from these 4 issues. That was like a thing that I was kind of like, because we take, and here's the image-y bit of the point. We take a huge detour from all the stuff that I want to be happening and that we should be happening, and like the story that's unfolding, to be like, here are these other Image 90s characters and we're going to interact with them for a while. And it's like, but our plot!
Jay, you love hero fighting hero stories.
We have a plot! I do, but but what Youngblood didn't really, the Youngblood character, I can't remember, was Bedrock or whatever, didn't really come across as a hero.
No, certainly not.
So yeah, like I didn't think that the crossover really helped this as a miniseries. But beyond that, I thought that there was a lot of like cool through lines in the plot of, you know, his amnesia and kind of becoming this hero. There's, you know, I appreciate Eric Larson like trying to do some more, but I feel like he could embed things a little bit more into the plot instead of like, we're going to break for like moral lessons with the dragon and then we'll get back to action sequences, you know? So that was a slight thing, but it also like, there's a lot of characters, but a lot of characters that don't have anything going on with them. Like Frank and Dragon, I think, are the only characters that have any real depth to them. And besides that, it's just like, here's this character, and here's this character, and here's this character.
And they did that a lot with, they had, for, what was this, 4 issues? Like 6 different named villains. Who Savage Dragon got in a fight with.
Was the only one who left any impression on me. Like the rest were like, can we get back to Super? Because Super Patriot beats him in a fight too, and then a bunch more characters just show up. That's when we go into the '90s crossover, and I was like, no, get back to this guy who just beat him in a fight. Like, let's get back to that. I don't need this whole crossover other thing.
Yeah, but I do think that it was. Like, I think a lot of the villains that they introduced were cool. Like, Arachnid, I think, was one of their names. And this creature had been, like, stealing and eating children for a very long time. And I thought that was cool, but that was resolved immediately and wasn't important to the plot at all. And I think there were a lot of kind of bits like that where it was just, like, 5 pages of the story that did not move the story forward. And there were just clumps of those all over the place. I think it was just super disjointed. I never knew how much time was passing. Like, by the time they get to the end of the first issue, it had, like, all been on his first day or something. And I was like, what?
I'm gonna... There's one sequence, I was waiting for you to bring it up. I'll bring it up because I think it plays into the time thing. But the one thing I want to say first, because based off what you just said with, like, all the time and like the bits of sort of stuff, I'd be very interested to see, like, based on the original issues, like, what is the added content, because he said he adds stuff in to like bridge gaps between stuff. So I'd be very curious to see, like, blocked off, like, oh, here this was added in and here this was added in, so that we could see like what's in the original issues and what's meant to be like flowing things together. But the bit I want to talk about, because it's not done well in general, and I hate to say it, but it's not done well in general, but the timeline really fucks it over even more, is the Debbie romance to death, which is...
There it is.
I was really waiting for you to bring that up, but let me give my take on it, and then you can run with it. Firstly, not handled well. The episode, the full Creative Corner episode will be up by now, so it'll be there. When I talked about like my opinion on the idea of fridging, it was like the just the idea of killing a female character to motivate a male character, in my opinion, is not a bad thing. Or killing any character to motivate any other character is not inherently a bad thing. This is it being done very poorly. And this is where I get people's heavy criticism of it, because this is when it's like, oh, that's uncomfy. But here's like what how the timeline fucks it over extra, because it's not just, it's the fact that, okay, she's locked out, whatever, they immediately just like kiss and have sex, and it's like, okay, that came kind of out of nowhere. But
right, especially because he totally rejected her earlier. He was just like, oh, you want to come in? Too bad, I have police work to do.
And then it's like the second that she like actually gets into his house, he's like, oh, well, I can't do anything now, what's happening?
Yeah.
But it's like, so the transfer of things there, I'm also very interested to see where the issue break was, because I'm assuming there's an issue break there. I have to assume that there's an issue break in that scene, because otherwise the timeline's really fucky. Because they have sex, I'm assuming the issue ends there. That would be my assumption, but I don't know for that for a fact. They have sex, then we get the next morning, which I'm assuming is the next issue and isn't actually supposed to be the next morning, and it's supposed to be weeks in the future. I'm hoping. Because then she's like, oh, honey, we're like together and everything now. I'm like, what?
Right? And she's like, have I told you how much I love you?
Yeah, like, and then she goes out and immediately dies. And it's like, okay, that felt like morning after, death. And like somehow there's a relationship there. And then we get literally funeral on the next page, like bar on the next page, and I was like, that's not, because even from the perspective, like, I didn't even get anything from like Savage Dragon's reaction until he like talks with what's it, Frank, right, is the name? Yeah, Frank. Talks with Frank later on. There's actually a really cool emotional moment there. But like that entire sequence of 6 pages where like this whole thing happens, like have sex, together now, death, funeral. I was like, this isn't just I don't feel anything for the woman character, I don't feel anything for Debbie. It's like, I don't feel anything for Savage Dragon, because he doesn't even seem that like sad or bothered about it either. And the timeline really makes it just extra rough on top of that.
Yeah, and I think something that I touched on in our Creator Corner, where we talked about fridging, is that the problem, I think, a lot of time comes from not caring about the character's death. And this was such an instance of, we saw her once, like 2 issues ago, and she was immediately brushed off. We had one scene with her essentially, and then the next morning scene, and then she's dead, and it's like, okay, I have no emotional investment in Debbie, so it just feels cheap that she's been killed. And while we're on Debbie, my one of the reasons I didn't jump right to the fridging, now I know that it can be hard to write women. Why is she written like, I don't know, a 12-year-old? It's very weird. Like, she is most of her dialogue is like concerned about her mom, which is like a fair thing for any ages. But then Savage Dragon is like, oh, you're looking at my magazines? Why don't you watch some TV? I'm sure there are some cartoons on. And I'm like, why are you saying this to presumably your adult
her
girlfriend?
Age felt very close to me. I was like, it very much felt like she was like 14. And I was like up until they're like kissing, like I thought it was like the thing of like, oh, here's this young neighbor who's gonna have a crush on him, and he's gonna have to keep like brushing off. Like I thought that was the plot line until like I'm like, I really hope she's an adult, because otherwise this is fucked. But then like it's like you said, like the interaction of like him telling her to watch cartoons was really weird. And
like it doesn't help that like, in the 90s style, all the characters are very big, so he can like lift her up on one arm, and it's like, well, this is not helping me feel like she's an adult.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, to the point that I was not clear on her age throughout this book, especially because how much she talks about her mom. So like, I assume the vibe is that she's actually 18 would be my guess, and like she's just like, I don't know, like she still lives with mom, but she's 18 or whatever. I do think there's actually a moment where she mentions like wanting to move out, but they're not being
she does.
Money. So like that does place her as an adult. So,
but that doesn't change the way that she is written.
No, not at all. But I'm like, I'm saying there is at least, I want to at least be accurate about the representation of what's happening.
Savage Dragon probably isn't a pedophile.
Yeah, well, we don't know how old he is. Honestly, he's giant and green. He could be. He could be 15. He could be 15.
But yeah, I think that I had a big problem with the way that Debbie was written. And I also thought it was a little out of nowhere that Dragon like did kiss and then bang her, because we see in like 3 other instances where women kind of come onto him and he's just all business. He's like, no, but why would I do this? There's police work to do. And then just out of nowhere this time, he's like, okay, sure. And then she immediately dies. It's like,
yeah. It's legitimately like that thing of like the like I think I had mentioned before. It's like somehow the second she got into the house, into his like room, he was like, "Well, I guess I've lost. This is happening now." It's like, what? Because he was like he's brushing her off. He even tried to brush her off, but when she was like, "I have nowhere else to go. I have to," come. He's like, "Fine, you can come inside, I guess." And then he was like, "Well, you're inside, so
that's I suppose we're doing this."
Yeah. So like that was definitely.
And it was certainly harmed, like you were saying, by the disjointed way that the story is presented, which, I mean, just feels like a kind of... And this is going to sound rough when I say it. It feels like a kind of just unsophisticated scripting. Like, you don't really have a plan. So all of these elements just kind of come together in a jumbled mess. Like, it doesn't feel intentional.
I feel like this has got to work a little bit better in like individual issues, but where my rough point then comes in is like he did extra work to try and like put this together into a trade with like adding in pages and stuff. So I'm left confused as to how he left that sequence the way that it is, and he left a lot of like the sequences of like the other one being when Super Patriot like beats Savage Dragon, and then we see like this villain jumping through the wall. I'm like, that probably works really well when that's the first page of the next issue and you're like, oh, he's in the hospital now. But in a trade, you're like, okay, we see Savage Dragon like on the scene needing help, and then we see a villain jumping out, and like, no, now we're in the hospital. So I feel like that's something.
But I mean, even with that, even from like in, I don't know, editorial perspective, you can put like the cover of the book in between.
You can absolutely,
issues.
But
in
I think,
fact,
and that's what I'm talking about in
books
the sense
do
of like,
that.
yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about in the sense of like it probably works fine in like the issue, but this was clearly the intent behind this collected edition was to turn it into one story with adding in pages and bridges and stuff. So that's why I don't get why we don't actually have those in the moments where I go like, this is definitely an issue break. Why is there nothing going on? So I think that's one of the weak points here. But
agreed.
We've been a little negative here. I do want to say
a little bit. I'm sorry.
Eric Larson is no. Don't. I kind of let us down that path. So I'm going to pivot here because Eric Larson is a phenomenal artist, and the action sequences and the page layouts are really gorgeous. The fight, especially the fight with Super Patriot, is really, really good. Even the fight with the Youngblood member who
I was going to say, I actually really liked the fight with Bedrock. I think that there were a lot of really cool moments. Personal favorite was when he like knocked him down an elevator shaft and went following after. And then, it was such a cool part of the fight when Dragon essentially wins. He kicks Bedrock out a window, out into the water. It's like, I hope you can swim. And then kind of turns around and realizes that the man is, I don't know, probably made of stone or something and can't swim, so he dives after, and then they continue fighting underwater. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The action was really great.
Great action. And then, like, when you have that book ended by these great scenes between Frank and Dragon, it's like, there's a really good comic book, and there's a really good, like, moments of that in here. There's just a lot of diversions and, like, inability to keep a succinct story that hurt it. But it's still enjoyable to me. I don't know how you felt. I still very much enjoyed reading this. Like,
I had a ton of fun reading it. Okay. And I even think, like, I don't think it was at all a situation of Eric Larson can't write women in general. Like, there's a cop named Alex, and she's written totally fine.
No, that's why I didn't go in there. I think
that's what I wanted to bring up. Is that I think that even though Frank and Dragon are the ones who really get that depth, I think that the other characters do like get to interact. Like, he has a couple of funny moments with Alex. Like, she's trying to explain to him what's going on in this like house that has a bunch of hostages, and he just walks past. She's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I'm going in," and it's very well done and very funny. And there are a lot of really good things about this book, and I think that even though the story doesn't always make sense, the actual writing of it is very good.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because it's not like I mentioned Eric Larson, very good, also a good writer. Like, there is writing talent here for sure. It's not just like, text bubble of here's what's happening. Like, there's a good writing talent here. There's some good dialogue. It's like you said, the characters, even if we don't get a ton of depth in them, they have personality. That's what'll set characters feel completely different. I don't think there's
Yes.
really any two characters that feel like they're the same person. Like, it's really, they all have their own ways of speaking, like accents and stuff come out through the way that the dialogue is written, which is really cool.
I felt so attacked because there were a few instances where they blend words together and I'm like, what does that say? What does that say? And then I'm like, I can hear that in the Dubear's voice with their thick Chicago accents and the bubbles. Like, yeah, in freaking 90s. It makes sense.
But yeah, like I thought that was cool. And I think that it does a really good job of like, oh man, like you mentioned this a little bit, like this villain's interesting, like this villain's concept's interesting, like there's a lot of good conceptual, like character creation in this.
Oh my gosh, it's both funny and interesting. Do you know anything else about the like group of people with weird powers? Like the power for his clothes to always be clean? Who are they? I need an entire book about those weirdos.
The super freaks, right? Is that what they
I don't remember what they called themselves, but they were
a lot of
fucking weird, and I loved them.
It was really fun. That was, like I said, a lot of the ideas really, really strong.
Exactly, yeah. There's a lot of creativity going on and a lot of talent there. I do want to touch on with Frank, just as a final thought on him. I loved the reveal.
Yes.
I'm sorry, the reveal that he set his cousin up. It's not,
to get Savage Dragon,
it's not fully divulged how much of it was like intentional getting his cousin killed.
No, this is a series that continues. So like
exactly, but at the very least, he set that up, and that adds such a like interesting layer to their dynamic. And you do see the kind of underlying bits of that with Frank when he's like, I saved Savage Dragon. I gave him a home. I gave him a job. He kind of owes me for all of that. Why won't he join the force? And so seeing that it was his own machinations that got Dragon in, it was a very cool reveal, and it did make me want to read more.
Yeah, for sure. I fully agree with that. I think that is that it's good that you brought that up, because like that reveal and that twist does do a lot of work to be like, man, this was well thought out, and there were seeds placed, so really good stuff. Without further ado, do you want to get into ratings and read out our new top 10 lists?
I am ready to get into ratings.
Okay.
I gave this a 6.5. I think that
okay.
I think that the art was pretty good. Not my favorite style. I thought that the writing was good. I thought that the actual story process was not very good. But yeah, it was a ton of fun at the end of the day. So my top 10 list, I've got Noctera, Full Throttle Dark on the top, Chicken Devil, Under Pressure at number 2, Radiant Black, Not So Secret Origin at number 3, Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths at number 4, and Savage Dragon. It was enjoyable, but it is coming in at the bottom at number 5.
Okay. I gave this a 7 out of 10. This is my... I feel like I've said this a decent amount today, but I said this a lot. This was a good fun time. Doesn't go beyond that. Doesn't go worse than that. That's 7 out of 10. Enjoyable. Good fun time. Solid start. Hope that we have better stuff ahead. I'm sure this won't be our only foray into Savage Dragon, even if it takes us a little bit to circle back around. My new top 10 list is Noctera Volume 1 at number 1. Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths at number 2, Radiant Black Volume 1 at number 3, Savage Dragon Baptism of Fire at number 4, and Chicken Devil Volume 1 at number 5.
Well, very good. Do we want to scooch over to the Creator Corner?
Yeah, I think we'll be inviting a friend to join us.
All right, and here we are in the Creator Corner, the part of the show where we talk about being comic creators, talk about writing books, putting books together, Kickstarters, perhaps, a little spoiler for you there, because we are joined today by a very special guest. We have Nicholas Mueller, creator of Winnie the Pooh, Demon Hunter, and quite a few other things in the house. Jay, you want to give us a little rundown on Nicholas?
Yeah, he has worked on Demon Hunter Raven, Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, Divine Anomaly, and several more titles. Mostly Kickstarted, a few things coming out now through Antarctic Press in stores, but don't take it from me. Let's hear it straight from him. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Creator Corner. Today we are joined by a special guest, Nicholas Mueller. He is the creator of Demon Hunter Raven, Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, and Divine Anomaly. Thanks for coming on, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. It's a delight to come on and talk to you guys. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So let's, without further ado, let's get into the questions, I guess. So
I
I
plead the fifth.
I think probably, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, the book that's gotten you the most traction is Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter so far.
Yeah, I mean, with it already being an established IP, people are going to recognize it, and it goes out worldwide. It's a global thing, and it's been around for over 100 years now. So, um, I'm kind of I wouldn't some people said I'm writing the coattails, but there's people that love Winnie the Pooh, and we're just kind of now I'm putting my own twist and spin on it within a respectful manner without trying to um, disparage or spit on anybody that loves a character or the IP, and do it in a way that people have come to know and love it already.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way I'm going with it.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say, I think you've been incredibly respectful with the way that you've handled the source material in the book. I think there's a real love there for the original characters while still doing your own thing. So I wouldn't say that
Thank
you're
you.
riding anybody's coattails. But I'm interested. So I know that you've referenced a couple of times that Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter started as a joke. I wasn't really following you
Yes.
before Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter. That's what kind of pulled me in. It was when you're doing the Volume 2 Kickstarters when I first discovered you. So how did Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter come about?
It was quite literally a joke. I think back in February, I had just gotten word that it entered the public domain, and I wasn't quite positive what that meant. I was like, public domain. I know of public domain superheroes, characters in that realm. Dynamite uses it to their benefit and prints a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And excuse me, it was just something of the idea of like, well, I guess that's your chance to then reprint, not verbatim reprint the original works, but now go out there and be like, oh, here's Winnie the Pooh in this sort of way or mold. So I was just, I had already been doing several Demon Hunter books. That's kind of my caveat. So I just simply joked and just said, hey, what if we made him a Demon Hunter? And it picked up steam, and I never thought anything of it. I was just like, yeah, I don't personally care about Winnie the Pooh in any sort of aspect of going after creative life, like license, anything in that sort of mold. He's, to me, I would always viewed him as a
Right.
Disney sort of product, and had potentially known that he was outside of their domain, like they had licensed him, which is a fun little fact. Winnie the Pooh is one of the first known licensed products. He spearheaded that whole entire thing because Disney wanted to actually take a whole. They wanted to buy it, but I don't think they could do it. They worked out a license, so he's the first known licensed actual property, and so Disney's the one that spearheaded that. So it's a really cool kind of to go back to that.
Yeah, fun
And
fact.
so yeah, so Winnie the Pooh was just a joke, and it just kind of took off. And people kind of just started kind of like, oh, what if this? What if that? And before I knew it, like a kind of a funny, goofy story started forming as we were all like, just this idea was bouncing around. And then I asked one of my friends, I said, hey, is there any way that we could work, like, just do a quick story, like, just see where this goes? And so we put something together. We were working on an outline, and to be fully transparent here, my wife said that kind of sucks, and I went, oh.
That's brutal.
Oh, what do you mean by that? And so one thing you gotta understand here is my wife is a classic literature lover. She's really into all the classic stuff. I'm huge in the comic domain. Give me superhero movies, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Blockbusters. So my literary sort of background isn't that as in depth. I get all that from her. So she comes in, she's like, that's not really Winnie the Pooh. And I said, well, what do you mean it's not Winnie the Pooh? She goes, well, read this, look at this, and go, oh yeah, you're right. This is not Winnie the Pooh. This is just kind of a fun idea version of it. So I have 5 kids, and Winnie the Pooh is playing in the background. We've got the Disney movies, we've got the show, and so it's always around our house. We've got the stuffed animals. So it came to a point where I kind of went, oh, if I want to take this serious and actually kind of jot down a story and do something with it, I better consult my wife here, who knows more about the character and the legacy. And so we started talking about ideas, and I think about 50, and I would say 65% of a lot of the ideas or the consulting really came from her and pushed it in a certain way that love and admiration from the character. I'm getting into it, but that really comes from her. She's the one that read the books, and we were when I started writing the story, I would take the original books by Mill and start reading them to the kids at night. And I'm sitting there going, oh my god, this is absolutely just perfect. This is the way he writes, um, the way that
Mm-hmm.
he deals with a children's book within yet still a mature tone is so amazing. Like when they're explaining how did Winnie the Pooh get his name, and basically the only explanation you get is, well, that's his name. That's all you need to know. We're gonna move on now. And then you go, well, why does Winnie the Pooh live under a tree that is called Mr. Sanders with gold letters on it? And then your answer is, oh, that's just what he does. And you go, oh, perfect. Yep, okay, totally understand. And then he goes, we're gonna move on now. And when you have little kids around you,
Mm-hmm.
that makes perfect sense because their whole entire idea is it is what it is. That you don't need to go further in explanation. I think Grant Morrison said it perfectly with the idea of like um, we're so invested in why does Batman have a repair guy to repair the Batmobile and all that stuff, and the joke is like, well, it's a comic where this is meant for kids. There's not we're investing too much. That the adult side is to go the logical of why, how, where, when. Kids, it's like, what's the fun part? What are we doing? So, um, the joke then took on more of a metamorphosis of how can we love what came before, respect what was going on, and still create something that would be new and allow people to enjoy this new version without
That's
disparaging what
so
came
sweet. I
before.
love how involved your family was in the creation of this book. That's just
Thank you.
so wonderful to hear. Were there any kind of concepts or jokes from that first script that didn't make it in that you kind of had a hard time letting go?
Um, Not really. We hadn't spent a whole lot of time drumming up a whole ton of ideas, so it was just kind of like makeshift outline, and it wasn't any. It was just a whole entire different direction, and nothing bad about it. It was just a different vision came about that I think the original one still would have respected the source material, but
Hmm.
it wouldn't have had the love for what came before. So, and we weren't in that headspace. We weren't thinking of that. That's not where we were coming from. We were just going to do like a really cool action thing. Um, it was really my wife that brought up that, like, there's more to this than what you're seeing, and that's when I kind of decided to shift gears and what better than to have someone that actually enjoys the source material compared to just trying to pick up an IP. I didn't want to be like the guy that did that live action Avatar: The Last Airbender, being like, hey, my kids love it. I'm just
Just the
gonna
shade of M.
just gonna
Night
do it.
Shyamalan right there. I mean,
His
fair.
name's not Aang, it's Ong, so we're gonna go that route.
I mean, such fair shade, but I love you throwing that shade.
Here's to hoping the Netflix series will be better.
That movie was terrible.
Yeah,
Right,
we'll,
right.
we'll
It
see.
looks cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with that for now.
Yeah, obviously, Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter was a huge success on Kickstarter, but that wasn't your only Kickstarter or your only success on Kickstarter. Do you want to talk a little bit about what it's like to put together a kind of uh, pitch for the public, essentially?
Sure, sure. So in general, you have to take all these ideas and think of how someone would react to them, how they would take them in, and what are the best pieces that you want to sell people on. Obviously, I'm not selling like mattresses, so I would want to direct my pitch towards something that it is, and not like, when you open up a YouTube video, if someone says how to make $5,000 in 1 week, you don't want to open up that video and find out, well, actually, there's a whole entire different concept and idea within the pitch that you're getting. It has nothing to do with what the title said. So your pitch should be something that you can, if you're stuck in an elevator with someone and you've got like 30 seconds to be like, hey, do you want to see Winnie the Pooh fight demons with a chainsaw? um,
I always
Put your
thought that was
concept.
such a good pitch line. Like, it's such a just one line. Don't need any other context. Like, yes, I do.
Yeah, it was that again was just kind of happened upon on accident because it was literally what I was trying to ask people. I was like, do you want to see that? Is this okay? Am I going too far? And then everyone's reaction was, yes, I want to see that. Why are you still asking? Show me it now. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then it just became the continuous marketing motivational thing for it. But it was never my actual intention to make it that. It was just literally me
For
asking because I
sure.
didn't know.
But with something that doesn't have, Winnie the Pooh attached to it, Demon Hunter Raven was also a success on Kickstarter. Do you have any tips for kind of making an original work stand out?
Yeah, so I know there's been kind of this thing going around right now where should you write for the crowd or should you write for yourself? And I think you should always write for yourself at first, but then when you're getting ready to send it out towards people, you have to remember that other people now have to join you on that journey, and other people
Right.
now have to partake within the reading. And again, you don't want to like change your story to the point where it's like, oh, now we're pandering
Right.
towards the people, and now they
Right.
can expect every beat. Oh, they can tell what's going to happen in the end. You want to have kind of a cool balance where you're writing for yourself, but you need people to come on this journey. If nobody wants to come on this journey with you, you might as well just keep it in your folder, put it on a file, don't even put it out there.
Yeah.
So if you're going to put out something of an original idea, there can also be the concept of maybe you're too far ahead of yourself, maybe you're too far out there with your idea. um, so there's no like right or wrong way. It's really just kind of testing it out with who's reading it, getting some feedback. Did people pick up what you were saying? And then also if you're playing the long game, like obviously if you're watching like a long form series, some of the seeds that you're going to plant, if people are like, I didn't get that, and you're kind of like, of course you didn't, and I haven't revealed that to you yet. So um, I don't know. There's so many ways you could go with that. That if you're doing an original idea, there is a
Mhm.
story for everyone out there. But then again, how big is that
Yeah.
crowd? Who are those people? And
Yeah.
you know, some people are just not going to like it. And I think the other half of it is understanding some criticism is going to be
Yeah.
legit because that's just not for them. You really want
Yep.
the constructive criticism from the people that you were looking to engage with the product. Again, I'm not selling mattresses, so I don't care what people have to say about my books that are caring about mattresses. So a weird analogy, but again, it's just who are you taking it from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Finding your
Who's it coming
audience.
from?
And I
And where are
think
you going
comics
with
are
it?
such a
Yeah. Yeah.
rife
And
ground for that. There are so many weird ideas that are birthed from comics. It's such a good space for those types of ideas.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
talked a little bit about Kickstarter, but Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter is kind of making the jump from Kickstarter to stores soon with Manga Z from Antarctic Press. So, can you tell us a little bit about kind of making that transition? Like, did you reach out first to Antarctic Press? Did they reach out to you? How did that come about that now it's going to be in stores?
Yeah, so I don't personally know Ben Dunn, but I have a way of getting towards him because of friends and people. And I had originally pitched Demon Hunter Raven to him, and he picked it up. And it was supposed to come out May of this year, and it got bumped, and I wasn't told. So I was like messaging him, and I was like, "Hey, I had a whole marketing campaign, and where is it?" And something else took the place, so it's bumped to next year's May. So I'm like, okay, I gotta figure out a new approach here to make sure that's getting enough eyes and ears. And I said, well, in the meantime, would you be interested in Winnie the Pooh? And within a heartbeat, he's like, yes, give me the file. And I was like, oh, what? Okay, okay. And then I didn't hear anything. I was just like, oh, well, okay. Well, I guess I'm not doing anything. So I just for a while there just sat and like, I'm not getting anything out there. Okay. Well, it seemed like there's a lot of excitement. I had covers, mock-ups, like I approved files for Demon Hunter Raven, and then there was just no communication. Then one day Tyler messages me and he goes, dude, Winnie the Pooh's gonna be in Mount Gazee. And I was like, excuse me, what? Again? And he didn't show me the file. I was like, yeah, you're in the solicitations. I'm like, no, I'm not. I had to
That's
pull it up, and I was like,
great.
"Oh, that is my book." And I had to make sure it was me, and they didn't just steal the thing. I was like, "Oh no, that really is my book."
So you
So
found out like you found out from somebody else seeing the solicitations.
yeah, when they solicited, I found out I was in the book. I was like, "Oh, cool. That's cool." I had to message Ben. I was like, "Hey, do you need anything else from me?" He's like,
All
"No, I got
right.
the files." I was like, "Cool, cool, cool. Do you need me to sign
That's
anything?"
great.
All right.
That's awesome. That's
I,
such a great story.
yeah, I don't know if it's coming back beyond that. I think he's
Mhm.
just using the first 20 pages from chapter one. So
But it's a
if
full like
if it
20
comes back
pages in
after that,
there. I feel like that's quite a bit. I haven't read Manga Z, but I know in like exciting comics and stuff, they usually do like 8 to 12 pages of something.
yeah, yeah, and that's what Demon Hunter Raven was going to be. It was like sequentially, just like
Mhm.
8 to 12 pages. No, actually, I think they were going to do the first 20 pages. It was going to be kind of like a cool,
Wow.
Awesome.
huge one.
I think that shows
But
they've got a decent amount of
I
faith
got
in your
bumped.
properties, right? You know, that they're giving you that much of the book space.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see what happens when it comes up to me. I haven't seen any of the files, so I'm just my hands are folded. I'm praying, and that it goes through this
Well,
time.
I pre-ordered Manga Z 18, you know, so I will be picking it up and I will, you know.
Sweet. Let me know if it's 20 pages or 10.
I
I
will
haven't
let
seen
you
anything.
know. I'll let you know how many pages it is.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream is to get published, have your work put out there. Uh, Is that something that you had your eye on when you got your start in comics? Have you really only done creator works, or have you been on that freelance grind as well?
So I started way back in 2006 and worked in like before Facebook, and I mean this
Right.
is the days of MySpace, and forums were really big, and I was working really hard. I wanted to get in DC Marvel. I
Yeah.
wanted to work with some top tier guys, and I worked on a lot of anthologies for people, and I worked with this one creator named Josh Brown, I believe his name was, and I got to work with him on some really cool stuff.
Mhm.
They were 4 pages because at the time you were just trying
Right.
to put a portfolio together.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was doing like a ton of fan comics because I just wanted to build up a portfolio, build up a name. I did a lot of Ninja Turtle fan comics at the time. And
And now you have the Demon
I'm
Slayer turtles.
yes, so it's kind of full circle there. But I got super sick. I was doing like the grind hardcore. I think at one time I was working on like 6 different projects, and I just burnt out, and I got sick for a whole month because I had a motto. I was if you came to me, I would never say no. It was just an instant yes. Let's get moving. And I think there was like one week where I got
Oh
3 hours of
no.
sleep, and that just wasn't smart. And so I think I took a 10-year hiatus, and kind of
Wow.
got back in the landscape. I was like, hey, what is this crowdfunding stuff? This independent movement, and it was just a whole entire new night and day. And that's kind of where I jumped back in the fold, working on Demon Hunter Raven, and just kind of just putting out new stuff out there. So I don't know. It's fun to see the drastic change, and I have no clue what things will look like 10 years from now because the internet provides such a different way of putting stuff out there, and the way that you
Mhm.
distribute it now compared to even just 10 years ago where you're reliant on publishers. There is no there's I would say there's such a disconnect from publishers needing to be the avenue you need to go to, that you can go directly to your fans or the readers that want to connect with you. I mean,
Yeah.
Webtoons is a perfect example of that. So um, I don't really. It was never been my current plan now
Mhm.
isn't to seek out publishers
Yeah.
or to go that route. But I think Winnie the Pooh has more of a larger pool that I'd rather see it get into wider to
Mhm.
go beyond what I can do. So I knew uh, compared to other properties that it can go
Mhm.
further than what I can, and more people
Right.
know about it than probably me in general.
Yeah, and kind of going off that because you talked a little bit there briefly about the idea of like the digital space and how that's kind of progressed publishing and made it a whole different game. Do you find like looking at, you don't have to go into specifics, but going into like sales on Kickstarter or post Kickstarter of your books,
Mhm.
like the digital versus physical breakdown, is there a big discrepancy there? Are a lot more people buying digital nowadays, or what does that really look like?
Yeah, so it depends on what your reader base is. So just to give it just a quick glossary, if you have collectors, you're going to have more of a physical purchase, and then people that just want to read physical. But if you have people that are just there purely for the story and want to just keep following it, you'll see kind of a healthy balance between digital and physical. Because sometimes they just want a physical on hand just to be like, it's on my bookshelf, I know it's there,
Mhm.
but they want the digital to read.
Yeah,
And I think that's more of my fan base is they are more of a mix of they want that digital so they can read it, and the physical just on hand.
I've
But
got
now I've
physical.
kind of walked myself in, yeah, I've walked myself in a corner where now some people are like, well, when's your next omnibus coming out? I'm like, maybe in a year and a half from now. Give me some breather, guys.
Guys, slow down. He's going to take another 10-year hiatus.
I will. I will.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I've put out 4 omnibuses now, so that within a
I feel like
3 year
you have a new
span. So
Kickstarter every couple days. Like you have one running right now that just ran, right? So like it feels.
it's got like 13 more days, and that's just a 20 pager. I was just like, I'm not working that hard.
I don't think I would ever say it out with that. You run a lot of Kickstarters for I think compared to most people in terms of what you're able to get done, which is really
Oh,
quite
yeah.
impressive and admirable. I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as much anymore. The idea was for the first 3 years was to just really get the body of work done, get it so that we had something to then go into other places like
Mhm.
Amazon. So everything's up on Amazon now,
Yeah, I've
and
seen
it's
that.
a pretty healthy library. And now the idea is to kind of look into other avenues and explore other options. So we'll see where it goes. I'm kind of still planning and penning out what business side of 2024 looks like and where things want to go. So um, I don't know. There might be a few that just go straight to Amazon, like huge books, and we'll see what happens.
That's interesting. Does Amazon like provide a healthy readership, or is it much more the Kickstarter and Amazon's just kind of like a little extra bit?
So Amazon Kickstarter has just been where I've kind of built my initial base and have gotten people interested, and then I kind of try to drive them towards a newsletter or something where they can keep active or stay informed. And then Amazon is the second, like, okay, now that, because not everyone has access to the Kickstarter. I had someone message like, hey, I can't get the third volume. And I was like, yeah, it's done. And they're like, well, when will it be out? Like 6 months from now. So, that's not the answer you want to give to someone. Like, people are looking to buy right now. You want to be like, well, yeah, here's the Amazon. Go ahead and pick it up. That tends to be the hardest part for a lot of independent creators, whether it's music, film, or books of any kind. Having that secondary outlet of going, well, here is the actual place you can go pick it up now, because directly distributing yourself and continuously having product on hand can be kind of a pain in the butt. Because I was like, move all these boxes down in the basement. I'm getting they're an eyesore, and I don't want to look at them anymore. I'm like, I know, but people are buying stuff. And
good problem to have.
That can be the hardest part.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, is there anything that you want to tease? Anything that you have coming up that you want to shout out here?
So this will be the first time ever. I actually can't tease what we're working on because they're super secret. And
that's a little tease right there.
Yeah,
in itself.
It's not comic. It's not comic related either. So, but it has something that I can't even say because people guess it on the first glance. We're in the R&D testing phase of it right now, and kind of testing out to see if it's something we can go in. So before I even tease it, I don't want to be like, oh, it fell through. Right. Got people's hopes up. So I'm holding it pretty close to the chest. And when we get close enough that I know we're 100%, it's going to work, it's going to happen, it will be probably one of the coolest teasers I've ever put out. And then I'm just going to up and leave again.
Well, fantastic. Can't wait to see what's coming.
And I mean, at the very least, people can check out your books on Amazon. You said they're all up there. And Manga Z 18, right, is coming out on the 20th with Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter in it. So, a couple things.
As far as I know, so yes. I have no idea.
Love that.
Well, fantastic.
I'll find out at the same time as you guys do.
That's great. I love that so much. Yeah, sorry, I cut off your outro there, Katie.
You're good. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicholas. This was so cool. Your work is fantastic. Really just a presence in the indie comic space that we love to see. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and it was great talking with you. I think you had a lot of good insight into this type of publishing. So, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Yep. I think that's going to be it for today.
Remember to pick up your copy of Manga Z number 18 in stores today to check out Nick's work.
However many pages it ends up being. And if you join us next week, our polls are going to include Batman Off-World number 2, Titans Beast World Tour Central City, and Plot Holes.
And our back issue review that week will be Paper Girls Volume 1 from Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang.
See you next week, Comic Geeks.
Oh my gosh, I will ask because perhaps you know. Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
In a lot of his 90s books, has weird cheetah print gloves on.
Does he? He has yellow.
What the fuck is up with that?
I didn't know that he had cheetah print in the 90s.